Good afternoon, everybody. October 28th, 2025, Wednesday. It's about almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was doing some running around kind of shopping stuff, but never bought anything. Anyway, I'm in a place called Zdanovici, and it's kind of like on the northern part of Minsk. And of course, there's a groshek. There's a huge, I guess you call this a Renok, because it's got all kinds of things you can buy. Clothes like you would never, ever believe. Clothes coming out of your ears. In fact, it's very difficult lighting right now because I have to face a certain way. Otherwise, sun's in my eyes, or else I look like a silhouette for you guys. So maybe I'll try to keep it over the left shoulder here. Anyway, the war is on again in Gaza, and I think the Trump administration is trying to say, oh no, it's just a little, we knew there would be some problems or things like that. But Israel, I think Benjamin Netanyahu, I think it was he personally that said, no, the war is on. The war is on. So, let's see. Looks like Israel could not wait till Donald Trump started his bombing of Venezuela. Of course, that would be used as a distraction, but like I said, he couldn't wait. So there it goes. And they say that the Hamas killed an IDF soldier. They might have, they really might have, but one person, one soldier, and of course this might have been in a retaliation or during some kind of a fight where the IDF was killing Israelis, and there's a lot of them they've been killing. So, yes. I don't know, I think maybe Hamas denies that. So it's possibly a mistake that these people that Israel pays, these other bands or whatever, they might have accidentally killed an Israeli soldier. I don't know. But Israel's killed approximately 100 just in the past some days since this ceasefire. But add to that, not just that 100, because last night, I don't know what's been happening in the past couple hours, because I have not been looking at news, but at least last night, they killed 63 Palestinians, and 24 of them are children. And bombing, of course, how can they resist? The first thing they normally bomb is a hospital. And then, of course, they accuse the Iranians, remember that, of bombing a hospital, when they didn't bomb a hospital. I think it was like 100 meters from a hospital. But it just so happens that the Israeli put some kind of a, intelligence office right by there. Anyway, that was during that 12-day war, if you guys remember that. But there's a lot of videos about, I can't go that way, it's blocked off. There's a lot of videos about, just from the past days, lots of dead children, babies, toddlers, probably children barely could walk, or maybe not even can walk, that Israel did in. And Benjamin Netanyahu said this was coordinated with the United States. Isn't that strange? Coordinated. This killing. Yeah, and Donald Trump, I think he's been, this ceasefire, this was nothing but a bunch of bull anyway. They said, oh yeah, if Hamas or whatever disobeys the ceasefire. Well, what about Israel? They're allowed to disobey it. But Hamas, matter of fact, they did not disobey it. But just the accusation of Israel saying that. So I don't know if this was even intended to be any kind of a peace plan. I don't know. Donald Trump, you never can figure that guy out anyway. But anyway, they're saying it's holding. In other words, they just reduced the amount of killing. They're still bombing and killing all over the place, but not quite as much as during the time when they were just slaughtering Gazans and dropping bombs continuously on them. And like I said, Israel, they don't say that, oh, it's just that the ceasefire is holding. They admit that it isn't holding, so at least. And it says here they got several places, about 7 places they bombed within Gaza. Who knows how many children they really did kill. And not only that, this yellow line that they drew, where they took over what appears to me to be like 50 or 60% of Gaza, well, Israel is moving that line and taking even more of Gaza. So, and it's not even a response to this. They were planning on probably doing this anyway. So they're going to keep pushing the line a little bit more and a little bit more until, who knows, until they got like 70, 80% of Gaza. Donald Trump. Yeah, Donald Trump. They're not going to take any of Gaza, and they're not going to take any of the West Bank. So you know how it's going to go with the West Bank whenever they're done with Gaza, or maybe they're going to have a real pause with Gaza, and then they're going to start going on the West Bank like they said they would. And I think they've already earmarked, like I said, 61%. What a weird number, 61% of taking it. Yeah. But what about some of the other moves of Donald Trump? He's trying to seek global domination, and those are Donald Trump's words. He wants to dominate in everything. That's what he said. And of course he wants to dominate every country. He wants to dominate every industry. I mean, that seems to be pretty obvious right now. And as you all know, Japan has announced a major buildup, and they have for some months, that they're building up their military, is what I mean. A major military buildup. And Donald Trump is there. He's telling them to push even more, to go even more for an even bigger military buildup. I wonder who that's aimed at. It's not aimed at Russia, so you can't say that. But it's going to be aimed at somebody else after a while. Well, I guess I can walk here, can't I? Car over here. This is also still part of this this Renock, but it's on the other side. And of course, right in the middle, there's a big Baumarkt. You can buy building supplies and things like that. And then this over here, well, also inside of this building is a place where you can buy electronic things, mostly all kinds of things. I don't know. I can't even remember what kind of things now. And here's one bicycle shop. I think there's another one somewhere right over there. The other side is really huge. Here's some military clothes, and a lot of it is fishing clothes, if you see when I get up closer. So what else is Donald Trump doing besides Japan? I don't have my book with me, and the wind is blowing everything, so I can't read it. So he's also trying to woo Uzbekistan. I think he went to Uzbekistan just a day or two ago. And he's also now trying to have the leader of Uzbekistan come to see him in the United States, I guess, within a week or so. I was actually looking for a good cold winter coat. That's not quite the one I want. But I don't really know what he's wanting with Uzbekistan. That's right in the middle of all the stands, so it's not that strategic really, unless you can get another stand as a partner. In other words, take over with cognitive, what do they call it? It's not, cognitive warfare. I guess that's part of that. Take over the minds of some of the other stands. So, because Uzbekistan, I don't think if he just has that, it's not going to get him much of anywhere. Kazakhstan's to the north, and they got Tajikistan to the southeast, and I don't know. But it's right in the middle of the stands for the most part. I don't think it even borders Iran. It doesn't. You have to get another country. So maybe that's the whole idea, to get another stand. Maybe he wants to put a air base there. I can almost bet it's got to be something else. It's probably for strategic reasons. I don't know if they have any rare earth minerals, but strategic location, except for an air base, nothing else that can attract Donald Trump in the United States for that, besides that. Okay, Estonia says they shot down a drone, and I guess they're probably trying to make everybody think that it's a Russian drone, and then they say, oh, we can't find it. We can't find it. We shot it down. We can't find it. In other words, it was probably one of their drones, or it was a civilian drone, or it was a Ukrainian drone, or something like that, or a Polish. So they found it, and they just don't want to say that it's not Russian, because they made a big hoop-de-doo that they shot down a drone. Maybe they're trying to say it was a Belarusian drone, but Belarus doesn't have anything like that, I don't think. I don't think they have their own drone fleets. I've never heard of it. Yeah. So, well, anyway. The U.S. has attempted to bribe Maduro's pilot, if you can believe that. The pilot of Maduro, to take the plane and land it somewhere else. Commandeer it, to divert the plane. Divert the plane into some other place. But I'll tell you what they would have done. And they said that he's going to be a very rich man if he does that. But you know, how can you be rich when you're dead? I'm sure they would want that plane to be going in some area, and then they would shoot it down. You know, because it'd be too near some other place that the United States has control of. Oh, we had to shoot it down. It was in our theory. You know, so that guy, he wouldn't be a very rich man, in spite of the fact that the United States can print up as much money as they feel like it. And don't worry, because the American people will pay it back. A very rich man. Well, what's very rich for a person from Venezuela? I did $100,000 maybe. I'd be happy with that, but I'm not going to do anything nasty and dastardly to get it. Okay. Okay, and another thing, I was talking the past few days about coffee. You guys know, and one of the things that I was talking about is well, you know, American coffee. A lot of that comes from Colombia, and the most coffee in the world. And I was actually right. I was right on. I said maybe 30 or 40%. Well, it turns out it's 30%. Brazil has 30% of the world's coffee, and Donald Trump put sanctions on Brazil. 50% sanctions, and of course now they're having a big trouble with Colombia. I don't know, Donald Trump, he put sanctions on them yet or whatever. But you know, when you're messing with the two biggest coffee suppliers in the Western Hemisphere, you know, you might. And coffee is the second most traded commodity in the world after oil. I bet you didn't know that. Of course, it's the largest agricultural commodity if it's the second overall. And the United States is the country that drinks per capita nearly the most coffee. You know, it's a lot in Scandinavia, a lot even in Brazil. Didn't used to, but now it is. Now they drink a lot of coffee. But the United States is a big coffee country, not tea like a lot of other places. So the Senate, the United States Senate, voted down Donald Trump's 50% sanctions. So there's not going to be 50% sanctions anymore on Brazil. Wow. I was saying there was something not going to be going too well on that, did I? Didn't I just a couple days ago? Incredible. Damn, I should be a political analyst. Not an analyst, an analyst. So let's see. 5 Republicans joined the Democrats to, essentially, it's to keep the coffee prices from exploding too much. Coffee prices, as you notice, have been going up quite a bit in the past months anyway on its own. And that would have brought things up. Maybe it's gone up more in the United States because of Donald Trump's threatening all the... I mean, Donald Trump, how can he go to sleep without threatening somebody? Yeah. Oh, one thing, Donald Trump. One thing you have to give it to Donald Trump. When he went to Japan, at least... Well, what did he say? One thing he said that's kind of terrible. He said it's what happened with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you know, the atomic bombs. He said it was a little conflict. A little conflict. And, but you know, you have to be appreciative that at least he admitted that it's the United States that did that and not trying to make everybody think that it was Russia, you know, dropping those bombs. Yeah. A little conflict. Little conflict. Dropping the bomb on somebody. Dropping it. Yeah, little conflict. 200,000 people died, you know, within the day or so. Within those days that he dropped that bomb, or that they dropped, not Donald Trump, but the United States. I guess that was Truman, during Truman's time. 200,000, and how many 100,000 or so died after that because of, I don't know what kind of plant that is. I was thinking it was coffee, but it's not. I'm thinking of coffee. How many died of cancer, chronic diseases. In other words, a lot of radioactivity. Wow. And those were small bombs compared to what they have now. I think that would be nearly called a tactical nuke. Wow. So can you imagine that these tactical nukes are also nothing you want to mess with? I don't know if they already have those in Belarus. And the Orishnik is supposed to be getting to Belarus in December. I guess it's not there yet. So, and then of course these other ones, these new ones, they're going to get there. Probably. I don't know. There's no need for that in Belarus. They're super long distance. You can fire them from anywhere in the world, and they can get anywhere in the world. Well, anyway, you have to be appreciative that Donald Trump is not trying to make everybody think, you know, like Ursula von der Leyen and a lot of these people are trying to make everybody think that Russia is the one that dropped the nuclear bombs. How convenient, right? You know, get yourself off the hook there. So Napoleon, I mean Macron, he has 2,000 elite Foreign Legion assault soldiers waiting right at the border of Poland, waiting to jump right into Ukraine, to go to central Ukraine, you know, in the area around Kiev or maybe a little further. Assault. These are offensive soldiers ready to assault. So if they're not assaulting somebody, I guess they're training. I guess that's what you'd have to be doing. If you know what it's like in the military. If you're not actually doing something, you're training to do it. So, and also France has readied hundreds of hospital beds to take care of the wounded when that happens. So they're waiting for the word. They think they're going to be going in there and and going after the Russians. 2,000 elite forces. Yeah, good luck on that. They've already sent over 2,000 in. I think most of them are dead already. You know, but oh no. In France, they probably told them that was a training exercise. Yeah, but Foreign Legion, I don't know. I don't know if Foreign Legion people are married or nothing. So maybe that's why they're sending Foreign Legion, because they don't have anybody to mourn them when they. I'm just guessing. I don't know. That's what Foreign Legion's about anymore. Train over there. So meanwhile, the Russian military is intercepting many radio transmissions in foreign language still, right along the front line. They've been doing that for quite some time. You'll remember Scott Ritter talking about that when he's talking to people that he knows that are over there, and they get these foreign transmissions. By the way, I have a opportunity to meet a frontline Russian soldier, but he's going back, I guess, in a day or so. But he's here in Minsk. Anyway, I don't know if I'm anxious to meet the guy. So Amazon is cutting another 30,000 jobs. They cut 27,000, I think, in 2022. But the biggest layoff ever, 30,000 jobs. And they will be replaced by robots. Can you imagine that? Robots. Wow. So here in Minsk yesterday, Lavrov mentioned that the West is pushing countries into blocks. And obviously, you have like the EU, you have the Caribbean community thing, and you have a lot of these blocks. There's so many blocks you can't. I mean, even Russia's getting a lot of these things in these blocks. You got Shanghai Cooperation Organization. You've got the BRICS. That's kind of a big boy block. But United States, I think they have a different a reason to want to put everybody into blocks here. That's probably to start coercing them into military, like they do with this, what is this, ASEAN or whatever, or even with is it ACLUC? The American ones, the ones that the Americans or the West is involved in these blocks, they always go military. They always go into military. And a matter of fact, you have the EU, but then as far as I'm concerned, the NATO is nothing but the EU's military. But then they want to have an EU army. I don't know what the difference is between an EU army and NATO, to be honest with you. Yeah, but the U.S. wants to do this for the most part because these countries, or at least a bloc, like Rutte, who's in charge. He's the Secretary General of NATO, and he's of course a puppet of the United States more than anything else. It's much easier to control one person or a few, like Ursula von der Leyen and and Kaya Kallas than it is to control all the countries of the European Union. So that's what they want these blocks for, so they can just control single people that are well, most of the time they're not voted in, that are just in charge. They're just told they're in charge. And who's the one that assigns them? Okay, that's the United States. The United States assigns them to be the big bosses of the bloc. So maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But Lavrov was saying it's much. Wait a minute. He was saying that that's a different thing. He was saying that any country who pursues its national interests, like Slovakia or Hungary, they become targets then. So as you see, that's what they're doing already. They're staging all kinds of like protests and everything like that inside of like Slovakia and even Serbia. Serbia's not even in the EU, and well, of course, the EU is the one doing that. Anyway, they got their slaves to do that too. So if they control Ursula von der Leyen, and Ursula von der Leyen stages the protests, such as in Serbia, oh, then that tells us a lot. What about all the vote cheating, like in Moldova and in Romania? Oh, then Ursula von der Leyen. Maybe that's why she's been voted in all the time, even though she's really terrible. Everything's going bad, but she's a good, covert operative. I guess that's what that's all about. Lavrov is also wondering why everybody's so quiet in a lot of these countries. The Hate Russia Club, in other words, after this. I have to get used to this word. Burevestnik missile. So they're all so quiet. I think they were quiet after the Oreshnik too, as well. Matter of fact, they were probably even more quiet. I don't know. So it's like they don't want to acknowledge that Russia actually has these things. That's fine. Okay. Lavrov was also talking about the United States lifting sanctions on the Belarusian Belavia, the airlines. Belavia Airlines here. And he says, I don't know, I heard a little bit what he was saying, and he didn't use the word disguise necessarily. Maybe it was just a difference in translation. But anyway, the article said he said it's just a disguise behind that they seek to first rule the run, and it's obviously true. They're trying to run Belavia. There's no doubt about that. They're trying to run Belavia. And through that, they also want to run Belarus. But, like Belavia, I was listening. It didn't say this in the article, but I listened to what Lavrov said. It was translated, of course. He's trying to say, or at least the United States is trying to tell Belavia where they can fly, everything about the parts, which parts they get, even when they fly. They're trying to actually run the company of Belavia and make their whole schedules, where they can fly. And so I guess you don't need any kind of a person putting out policy on where they're going to fly there or anything. And it's a limited. So anyway, they're basically controlling it. They're controlling. That's that's kind of like a definition of fascism. How do you do it when a foreign country controlling a private business of a competing company? I don't know what that one's called. So. Spare parts and everything. And he said that he's hoping that the United States will go back to doing honest and fair business, or business in an honest and fair way, instead of what they're doing with Belavia. So that's very good because there was a big security meeting, as you know, here in Belarus. I guess it's the third one, and Minsk, and I guess every year they're probably going to be having them. And remember, the United States is set to reopen a diplomatic mission here in Minsk, and as you know, those things are always nests of spies, so they use them to spy on countries, and they hire spies. I've seen advertisements before where they're looking for spies. It's just really pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. The United States, they come out and they overtly are asking to find spies, to be spying on the countries. Incredible. But most of us expats here all agree that the United States is not to be trusted. So in chat groups and things like that. So that's, a lot of these people that are here, they've been in positions in the United States government and in military. So I guess they really know what's talking about. And I do too, as far as that's concerned. So Belarus better be getting some people ready to tail these people, find out what the heck is going on. Anyway, it's a short video, and I don't know what's happened the past couple hours. Probably Israel bombing Gaza even more, I can imagine. But that's all I have to put out right now. I thank you everybody for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.